Good afternoon. Well, good morning. Sorry, I'm even more on side of the day. So good morning. It's Lee Cassidy from Tactile Technology. And we're continuing with our Meet the Speakers sessions this week. So we've got our penultimate session today with Eric Cook. How are you doing, Eric?
I'm great, Lee. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the position you are at the moment, working at OpsRamp. And a bit of the experience you've had over the years as well.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I've had a pretty long journey in IT. I luckily my face doesn't show the years, but I've actually been in ITOM at ITSM for 26 years now. So I started off originally working for Intel and Intel subsidiaries and worked for them for most of my early career in IT operations management, and then moved into IT service management with several companies from manufacturers to service providers. And then about 3 years ago, I was offered a position with OpsRamp and decided to take it. And then 3 weeks after I joined, they said, hey, we're going to open a market in Europe. Do you want to go over there and help us build that? And I said, absolutely. And so I came over here to the UK 3 years ago. I've been loving it ever since. And my particular areas of expertise are in observability and in problem management.
Okay, so you don't mind the wet and the warm beer then? Most Americans take the mickey about us over.
Well, I'm from Seattle, so the wet has never been a problem for me. So, and I don't drink beer, so there you go. So I'm more of a wine person, so I don't worry about it.
Not a problem there. So next week you're doing two different sessions for us. One is a keynote talking about observability, and then you're going to do a demonstration and actually show people how you can actually do observability. But it's not just observability; it's like what comes next, isn't it? And on the back of that. So if you want to tell people a little bit about what your sessions are going to cover.
Yeah, so I think, a lot of people are worried about observability now, and it's certainly, the buzzword in the industry when people are talking about anything cloud native, right? How do I get observability? What observability tools am I using? And there's a lot of confusion in the market as to what observability actually is. So I'm going to help define that. But I'm also going to go into the other side of the observability coin. Everyone talks about observability, and that's great, and it can help you make decisions. It can get you better metrics. It can get you better actionable data. But then you've got to take action on it. And so I'm going to talk about that side, because I think this is something that's missing in a lot of people's toolboxes. They have maybe even good observability, but then they don't know what to do with it. And I want to talk about that, because that's where the actual cost savings and organizational savings are, in my opinion.
Okay. And I know you're going to define what observability is next week, but there seems to be a lot of confusion about, what observability is, besides monitor it, isn't there? So, it should be quite interesting for people to understand your perspective on what that is, but also how wide it is as well. We were talking earlier that a lot of people don't realize how big these things are, especially when you're looking at a cloud native environment. There are so many different components. And again, you're going to cover all that as well, aren't you?
I am. And, it's funny that a lot of companies, moving toward DevOps or SRE or things like that, have teams now that are actually sometimes bigger than the IT teams that supported the traditional infrastructure in order to support that DevOps model. It's, because of the wide variety of things that are out there. It used to be that IT supported the entire organization, right? But now we see that DevOps is supporting their own initiatives, but then they have what is essentially their own IT team internally, because, we talk about the developers doing all this. The developers aren't doing it. Well, of course they're not, especially when I show the size of the stacks and what you were talking about, what we were talking about earlier, where most people think that cloud native is Kubernetes and Docker. And in actuality, it's 1,000 different things, and I will definitely touch on that and talk about it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are concerned about moving into this space. So you're going to join us on our panel discussion as well, where we're going to talk about hybrid cloud, fact or fiction, and just get a picture of what people think in that space. And we had a brief conversation earlier, and I spoke to Nikki Villebrand yesterday about the same space. And one of the key issues is lack of experience and skills, within an organization that stops them doing hybrid in a lot of cases. But also there's other issues around pricing, depending on the organization, is better in different spaces. So it's quite interesting. Going to be interesting panel discussion, I believe, this next Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun, actually. And I think that a lot of people, when they think about cloud native, it's funny that cloud native has the word cloud in it, and oftentimes people miss the cloud part because they just do it all on premise, right? They're doing it all in their traditional data centers. But I think people are scared to move to the cloud part of the cloud native side, when it can tremendously simplify things. But as you pointed out, it can be more expensive too. But it all depends on how you balance, right? Because as you and I have had this conversation before. It's put in the cloud what's appropriate to put in the cloud. But don't put in the cloud everything. Like your test environments, those are great to go in the cloud because they only run, occasionally. Whereas some of your production workloads, depending on the reliability you need, it may be worth putting them in the cloud. But if you don't need that reliability and you don't need that scalability, maybe keeping them on-prem is the place to go. So it'll be a good conversation.
Very true. So let's just give people a bit of reminder. So the event's next Wednesday on the 28th, starting at 1 p.m. and going through to 5 p.m. And you can see the URL there to join it. So hopping.com events, tactile-technology-cloud-native-applications. So if you want to register, it's a free event. Just go and click on that. You'll need to register as a Hopin user first. It's free of charge. It means you can also see all the other Hopin events, a bit like Eventbrite, but you can then register for this particular event. And Eric's keynote will be at 1:15 to 1:45, so don't miss that. And I mentioned this panel discussion. We're going to do the panel discussion at 4:15 to 4:45. I didn't put a banner up for your practical session, so let me just check the time. So your session on observability is going to be at 3 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. as well. So we've got everything covered there. Well, thanks ever so much for joining me today, Eric. That's great. Hopefully we're going to get quite a lot of people along, and we can dispel some of the myths around observability at the same time.
I'm really looking forward to it, Lee.
Thanks ever so much.
Thanks.
Bye.